Hello, everyone. My name is Yvonne Keller, and I'm coming to you live with my story. Back in June of 2018, last year in June, I contacted the Adult Protective Services office, which is right on Bright Seat Road. And the reason why I contacted this office is because my mother had asked me to take her to her bank, which is the SunTrust Bank right there in Lanham. And I took her to the bank, me and my friend. We both took her and drove her up to the bank. And when we got to the bank, the teller told my mother that she had a zero balance in her bank account, in which my mother became highly upset and went to discuss the matter with the customer service rep. And I went along with her. Well, while talking to the customer service rep, she stated that Curling Addison's name was on my mother's bank account also, and that all the money had been transferred from my mother's bank account into an account that she could not get my mother any information on because my mother's name was not on that account. So my mother became highly upset, began shaking and just a little nervous, and she asked the customer service rep, well, how could y'all authorize her to take all my money out of my bank account? And the customer service rep said, well, when you added her name onto your account, it gave her the ability to do whatever she wanted to do with the money, with or without your permission. So my mother was upset, like I said, highly upset, and she said she didn't have to take it all. She could have used what she needed. And so I went on, and it wasn't too much we could do about it because, hey, she had a zero balance in her checking account, which had like about $27,000. I got the exact figures right here in front of me. And then she had the savings, and I believe Curling left like $17 in her savings account, and even removed that money also. So we went on and got in the car to leave, and thank God I had gotten paid that day myself. So I offered to take my mother out and treat her, but we just was going to stop at the 7-Eleven for right now just to get something cold to drink, okay? While we sit in the car, my mother made it stated very clearly to me and my friend David that she was taking Curling to court for her money. My mother sat in the car and she read the statement. I went inside the bank and I got the final statement from the customer service rep, okay? And when I got the statement, she came out and met me and gave it to my mother because I'm not on the account. So really, they wasn't authorized to give it to me. But due to the situation, and she saw how upset my mother was, she went on and printed it and allowed me to bring it out to my mother, who was sitting in the car. And my mother, as I got in the car, my mother was looking at the statement, and she said, and she looked down and she kept reading, and she said, 27,000, blah, 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 the exact dollars. She said she had to take all my money. She said, I'm taking her to court. I'm taking Curling to court. And so I said, well, Mom, you know what? I will assist you in doing what you want to do, okay? So I thought I would be a little lenient and didn't want the court's involvement so that there wouldn't be a big ball of stink. I really just wanted to allow my mother to free Curling off of her money without no problems, because I already had issues earlier when I had my mother's house renovated with Christmas in April of 2017. And then when my mother was moved back in, she stayed over here with me because that's the only place she would go. And she stayed over here with me. And when it was time for her to go back to her home, she was like, I'm not staying here. I'm going back over Vonnie's house. And I was like, you sure are welcome. So she came back to my house. And therefore, I knew I had to make her house look comfortable because we had been renovated and we had gotten rid of a lot of things. There was no curtains up, no rugs on the floor, So what I did was, one day I met with my mother and my sister Curleen because she was holding off on all my mother's bank cards and checks, and she wasn't giving my mother the ability to do anything unless she actually went to the bank at this time. And my mother told Curleen to give me the bank card so that I could go and finish getting the things that I wanted to get to finish fixing up my mother's home, which I had recently had renovated. And by the way, not one of my siblings came and lifted a finger on this volunteer project with Christmas in April. Not one of them came. I believe my brother Carl did come, and he got the lawnmower started. Now, some of my nieces and nephews were present, and they were painting and helping, but none of my brothers and sisters were there to assist in the renovation project. That was freely volunteer work. All the material and equipment was free. It was just because I wrote a heartfelt letter, and they accepted my letter, and they came to get rid of to help my mother's house out. And at that time, my mother's house was in bad shape. I'm telling you, my mother had roaches running rampant, however you say it. Roaches would meet you at the front door, and they came from her babysitting some little kids, and every day they would bring roaches, and I would see them coming out of the kids' bags and out of the baby chairs, and I'm like, Ma, you gonna get roaches? And before I know it, within a couple of years, that house was filled with roaches. And not only that, we had the house since 1973. It did catch on fire once, and they renovated it with some really cheap material. And things was just kind of like falling apart. It had never had no serious work done to it prior to me getting the Christmas in April project done. Not one of my brothers or sisters ever took the initiative to come over and say, well, Ma, let me fix the house up, or let me do this, or let me do that, No. So it came down to the point where my landlord sold my house right from under me. And I had lived there for like 17 years. And I had no choice but to go back to my mother's house. And living there and laying there, and I laid on my mattress. I had my bed set up in the rec room in the basement. And I'm laying there, and I look at my little buggy go crawling across the side of the bed. I was like, Lord, it's something that I have to do in order to help my mother. So what I did was I remembered the Christmas in April program. I called them up, and they came out. They accepted my letter, and they came out. They didn't come out till April. That was in November. And they remodeled my mother's, gave her all new kitchen cabinets, new countertops, new bathrooms, new toilets, new vanities, doors. They did the flooring. They did a good job. Light fixtures, whatever needed to be done upstairs. Now, I know some of you might have heard my sister Thelma, one of the biggest complainers about me having the work done with Christmas in April, because she's big on saying, oh, well, Vonnie didn't do the work. She didn't pay for nothing. I sure didn't. But I took the initiative to get it done because I saw that it needed to be done. Had I had the money, and if I could have afforded to fix my mother's house up, whom I love dearly, I would have fixed my mother's house up out of my pocket with no problem. So, no, I did not pay for it. But by the grace of God, I had enough sense to write to some people who could pay for it. And we received it all for free. Okay? And so after I had my mother's home renovated, like I said, then me and my sister had the argument about her not wanting me to give my mother a bank card. And every day, every other day, Curleen, when she stopped by or whenever she stopped by, she was bringing new clothes. She had my mother's control of my mother's bank card and my mother's money. And every day she would come by. She didn't come every day, but every time she came by, she had a bag that she'd been to the store and brought my mother a new outfit or brought her some slippers or brought her some socks or brought her some this and brought her. My mother said, don't buy me nothing else. She told her, don't buy me nothing else. I don't need no more clothes. And then the day when me and Curleen got into the argument about her not wanting to give me my mother's card against what my mother was telling her to do, I went in my mother's closet and I took all the new clothes that she brought my mother with the tags still hanging off of them, and I took them, I threw them right in the window of her car. And I said, you can take this with you too, because she told you don't buy her no more clothes. But that's over. And moving on with the story. So after we got out of the bank, and my mother said that she wanted to take Curleen to court, and I said I didn't want it to actually go to the court. I didn't feel like, it had gotten to that point that we needed the court involvement. So I was looking up different things and ways I could probably get, help for my mother, without me and my sister having a fight. Because I will fight for my mother. Yes, I will. Or I will hurt somebody over my mother. But see, I'm a changed person, and I'm not the Vonnie that I used to be, because anybody and everybody know if the Lord had not made me into the person who I am today, things would have been a lot differently, and I probably would be sitting down in the jail somewhere. Okay? But anyway, so I went over to Adult Protect. I called over there and I filed a report of exploitation against my sister, Curleen. And after I filed the report, the lady, her name was, the investigator called me back because I left a message with the intake team, I guess. And then the investigator called me back, and her name was Amsale Bagale. Okay, that's Amsale Bogale or Bagole, something of that. I believe she may be of Ethiopian descent. So this woman calls me up on the phone and tells me that she's the investigator, and tells me that they're gonna have to come out, and they would have to bring, since children live in the house, because my oldest daughter and her children were staying there at my mother's in the basement, and another young lady was there with my mother, whom I had taken over there just so that someone could be there at all times with my mother. Not that she really needed someone, but at her age, I felt like it was good to keep somebody there at all times so she would never be alone. Okay? Although she could open the door, she could do pretty much everything on her own. Also, my nephew Emmanuel was living there, and that's my sister Janet, who's deceased. That's her oldest son. He was living there. He worked as a barber at the time, and he was mostly gone during the day. And my son Randy. My mother had me to send him to her when he turned 18. Send him over here to me. Send my boy over here to me. So Randy, his life has had a lot of challenges, but overall, he's a good son. I mean, he's had a lot of challenges in life, but I love him, and my mother loved him just the same. So those all were living with my mother, and so the woman, she said, well, I'm going to have to go over, and when I start the investigation, and, we may have to take Child Protective Services and blah, blah, blah. I said, that's no problem, because I knew that my mother's home was recently renovated, and everything was nice, and everything was up to par. I had just recently got some new furniture into my mother's living room because she said she didn't like the couch with the plastic on it no more. She said, I don't like this couch. And anything my mother said she didn't like, my goal was to change it. Okay? And even though I didn't have the money to always change everything, she did. And if she didn't like something and she wanted to change, it was changed. Okay? And so my mother, I called, and the lady, the investigator, Miss Vigali, with Adult Protective Services, she made an appointment with me on that Friday. On that Friday, which would have been June the 8th, we were supposed to meet at my mother's house on Whitfield Chapel Road. I sat there. Well, I was always there every day anyway, during the course of the day. But that particular day, I waited there and waited. I didn't really leave out too much. I mean, I went to the grocery store early in the morning, as I always did, up to the Aldi's, and got my mother a little fresh orange juice and a banana. Then I would come home and fix her breakfast. Then I would fix her a nice home-cooked lunch and a nice home-cooked dinner every day. Every day. Monday through Friday. Every day. Now, on weekends, I did want a little break, and I kind of like left her on her own for that, or my daughter, or my nephew, or one of my nieces or nephews, or brothers or sisters might would come by, bring her a meal, or, something like that. But I made it my job, my 9 to 5, my 6 in the morning to 5 in the evening job from Monday to Friday. So I sat there and I waited for this lady to come to start this investigation as to exploitation of my sister not allowing my mother to have access to her own money. Her own money, okay? And had taken it all out of her bank account. Now, at this time, we did not know where the money was going because the bank said that they couldn't give us any information. But we later found out in court that the money had went into an account that was assigned to Thelma Brown Brooks and Curleen Addison, and Maisie Phillips' name was nowhere on the account. So she had zero access to her hard-earned retirement money and pension that was coming to her monthly, about $3,500, a little less maybe, okay? So I sat there and waited, and the woman never came to start this investigation. So I was wondering where she might be. And I gotta take a break.